Hey Internet, Sergeant, welcome back. Thanks for tuning into this show today. Now, in today's episode, we're talking about the art of moving money around from bank to bank, which is a common requirement for many of these bonuses we go after. So I'm going to tell you how I do it, some different options you have available, why I do one over the other, and what it all means to make this hopefully easier for you as you play this game. So of course, if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead, press the subscribe button, and let's get to work. Now, this is definitely a question that comes up quite a bit, because if you're new here, then a lot of bonuses, come down to, hey, transfer me or deposit X amount of dollars for this amount of time, and I will pay you your bonus. I just did a Chase business one. We had a video on, say, deposit $30,000 for 60 days, and we'll give you your bonus. Citibank deposit 75, we'll give you your bonus. So in addition to the direct deposit ones, of course, but we're really just talking about ones that, hey, just deposit money to us. But of course, we'll talk about direct deposits as well. So it's a big piece of the requirements when it comes to these bank bonuses. So we'll start with direct deposit because it's the easiest. Now, we've covered what works and doesn't work as a direct deposit in a separate video, but when they mean direct deposit, they really mean money coming from your employer, Social Security income, pension, something like that. And that one's fairly straightforward because you go into your company's HR system, set it up, plug in your account number and routing number, whatever information they ask for of the destination bank, and then that employer is going to process that and send the money over there. That's what they mean by direct deposit. That one's pretty easy and straightforward. So we'll move on from there. Again, if you want to know more about how you can get around the direct deposit, I'll link a video down below for you, but on the surface, that's just a regular direct deposit. Now, the ones where you need to fund the account, right, with just new money to the bank. So, new money to the bank to start off. New money means money that is not currently on deposit with the bank. So in this example for Chase, I have a Chase personal account. If I open a Chase business account, I can transfer between the two of them. I'm allowed to, but if I just took $30,000 from Chase personal and moved it to Chase business account, that does not satisfy the requirements because in Chase's mind, you didn't give me any more money. I already have that $30,000, so you just moved it from right pocket, left pocket. Doesn't count. So that's what new money means. It has to come from external from the bank. So in this case, you could simply send that $30,000 out to Bank of America, then send it directly to the business account. Very rarely do banks actually look at that. I think the only one I've ever seen was Ally Bank, who was doing a savings account bonus, and they said, hey, money that's left the bank within the last 30 days doesn't count. So if you had sent out $20,000 and you move in $20,000, they're going to still say zero because you just did the trick we're just talking about. But very rarely is that specified. Ally was a use case, a special use case, because again, people use Ally as a savings account, so it's not unreasonable to think people already have a large sum of money with them and they wanted new money. So there's that. Now, when we talk about moving money, the easiest way I do is I do ACH, so automated clearinghouse. ACHs should always be free. I know there are some banks out there that have tried to charge for it. If they try to charge for it, never bank with them again beyond the bonus and just leave it at that. ACHs should be free. That's the benefit of them. Now, automated clearinghouse, again, it goes through the Fed, and they kind of help facilitate it. That's the high level of it anyways. Put a graphic up on screen for you, but what you do is to set this up is you have to link your two accounts together, because for ACH you have to own both accounts. You have to be a signer on both accounts. So I can do my Chase personal to my Ally Bank to my Citibank, because I'm a signer on all of those accounts. Now you link them generally with micro deposits, so you'll log into the bank, you say validate your information of the external bank. They'll send a few cents transaction. It'll be it'll be 10 cents and like a 12-cent deposit, and then you go back to Ally in this case, tell Ally the money that they sent over. That links the two accounts. In their mind, that proves ownership, and you're good to go to transfer just like that. But you cannot, for ACH on personal accounts, we'll talk about business in a second, you can't send money to accounts that you don't own. Business we'll cover in a second, so you just have to own the account. Now, some other terminology here. Push and pull is probably something you've heard about. So in the context, and use it in a sentence, if you will. So if I were to want to transfer money, 30 grand from Ally to Chase, what I would do is I would go into Ally and I'd say I'm going to push $30,000 from Ally to Chase. I'm initiating the transfer on Ally side, going in, selecting from Ally to Chase, 30 grand, deliver on this date, and Ally is pushing the money to them. Similarly, if I wanted to take 30 grand from Chase, I would go into Ally and say, hey, send from Chase to Ally, here's the date, and I'm pulling 30 grand from Chase to Ally. Those are what those terms mean. Now, that's important because what I do, I'll explain more of other options, but this is the one that I do. I use Ally Bank. This is not a sponsor. I have no referral links to Ally. I wish I did, but I don't. I use Ally because, one, they generally do have a decent savings rate for money that's just sitting on the sideline. I think it's like 4% right now. The last email I got, something like that. And it's a savings account. All savings accounts are limited to 6 transfers a month. At the time of taping, they are waiving that due to the pandemic, but they've got to be getting rid of that pretty soon. Because I'm pretty sure we've moved on from that, at least from orders wise, I should say. But anyways. Ally doesn't care how much money I move or how many transfers I make. I mean, they have limits, but their daily limit is like $500,000, which I'm well away from hitting. So I can transfer push from Ally to neobanks, small banks, credit unions, as long as I can validate it. They don't seem to care. I can pull money back. They don't care. As where Chase historically is hypersensitive to pushing money to new accounts. So unless the account is really old or with a legit old school bank like Bank of America or Citi, I will not initiate transfers from Chase. I don't even like transferring money to Chase because of that, because of how sensitive they are. Now, your experience could be different. I'm just telling you mine is. They are very sensitive. So I use Ally, and that's really how I move the bulk of my money around. I still have my Chase accounts, like my operating account for just regular expenses. My Ally account really works for spreading out my money across all my bonuses, pooling it back together, and having one centralized spot through ACH. ACH takes about, sometimes it's going to be next day. Some of them are instant, like Chase, funny enough, does have the option to do instant transfers sometimes. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's 2 to 3 days, something like that. Not too bad. They give you the day it's going to be on. So there's that. That's how I do it. That's the way I suggest. Now with ACH though, the only thing you can really run into, again, we talked about Chase being very sensitive to new accounts, and they're not the only one because, you open up new accounts. Sometimes banks are very susceptible to, or banks are very concerned about ACH fraud, which is basically like ping-ponging money back and forth between ACH and eventually crying fraud and trying to get them to pay out for it when really you've had the money the entire time. So that doesn't happen too much, but you can see like Marcus did this, I think, where Marcus was telling a lot. Marcus required like at least a minimum of $10,000 to be deposited for their bonus, but then Marcus was basically saying to certain people, you can only move that money from Marcus back to the original bank it came from, and that's them trying to protect themselves from this ACH ping-ponging game, because then it doesn't go, they know it's going back to the source, it's not going on to another source. I don't know if that blocked people from pulling it out. Generally, they don't stop you from pulling it out, but I mean, they certainly could, I suppose. I think it was more so if you were initiating the transfer on Marcus's side. I was generally initiating on the transfer side, make it go a little bit faster, but you could run into that as well. Just something to be aware of. It's not super common, but another thing to be aware of as we talk about this game. Few things from there. We did mention instant transfers versus ACH. As I understand it, ACH does show up differently than an instant transfer. I haven't seen this myself, so I don't know a ton about it to speak to it more than I'm going to, but I did have an individual or two email me or write in saying, hey, I think it was US Bank didn't honor my transfer because instead of doing an ACH, I did an instant transfer, and somehow on their end that coded differently, which I've never seen before, but I'm just going off of what they said, so I would err on the side of caution and do ACH versus instant transfer if it's for a bonus. But again, I can't really speak to that. I'm just putting out the data points for you. So if you guys have experienced that, I'll put it down below. Instant transfer is like a Venmo. Like it operates like a Venmo where like it'll give you the money like same day when you transfer. You know how if you pay someone, they get the notification in their Venmo account that it's there. That's what it is. So there's that. Now, in addition to that, one other thing to touch on is business accounts. We like to keep business accounts because business accounts have the ability to send money to anyone. And by that I mean with personal accounts, you have to be a signer on both accounts. So I can still go Ally Personal to Amex Business Checking as long as I'm a signer. If they don't care about that, I can do that. But I couldn't necessarily go because a business account, I guess the easiest way to say is business accounts are set up so that you could pay a vendor, which is not uncommon for businesses. So as a result, business accounts will have an ACH option that we just covered, works the same way. Then they'll have like a bill pay option. The bill pay option is very similar to, how if you were going to do a Chase bill pay and pay a credit card somewhere else, right? You're not sending it to your account, but you're paying bills with it. But this one allows you to, add in an account number and a routing number, add in a different individual and send money. Now, the advantage why we care about this is because if I send money from this business account that's in Profitable Content's name, I can send it to another bank account. Even if I own the bank account, I can still put my name on it. That's fine. Send the money, and then it'll potentially show up as like a line item, and it'll say, instead of saying like from RJ, it'll say Profitable Content. Then sometimes there's a data field where you can type in a memo, and I can type in payroll or something like that. Now, I don't believe that the other bank is fooled by their other bank's system is fooled by a free text data field that says payroll. I don't believe that, but one, sending from business accounts this way can trigger bonuses. And number two, if you ever do have to push back on the bank, having it come from Profitable Content payroll, I can go literally, no, Profitable Content is an incorporated LLC in the state of Michigan. That's my payroll. And that's it's an easier fight to make. Now, I understand most people's business accounts that we do here are just in sole prop names. It's a little tougher on the argument, but the end result should still be the same. So there's that. That's why people like business accounts. But again, they work the exact same way. Now, other ways to fund bank accounts really quick here or just move money around. You have the option of Zelle. Zelle is kind of like that peer-to-peer deal, but you can still, move money from one bank to another with Zelle it to yourself. Issue there sometimes is, you have to have a registered email and phone number. So as long as you just remember which phone number and email is registered where, which account, that works. I've done it in the past when I had to move money very quickly. I think I was like arguing with the bank and I was like, fine, just close the account. But then hours later, the bonus posted. And since they were going to close the account the next day, I was like, I got to get this money out quick. So I Zelled it from there to myself. Like that can work to do it pretty instantly. That's not going to count as a direct deposit or anything. In addition to that, you can just deposit cash if you want at open. Now, again, remember, if you're doing one of these large bonuses, anything in the $10,000 is the limit before they have to, or by law, required to file a SAR. I think it's suspicious activity report that goes to the government, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just really means that you have to be able to prove where this money came from because it's cash. So if it's an opening deposit of $1,000, whatever it is, and you want to take care of it in cash, so be it. I wouldn't do, like this $30,000 Chase, I wouldn't do it. I would ACH it to avoid that. You can do wires as well, but wire costs money. Again, that's not going to count as a direct deposit. But if you need to get the money over there very quickly, you can do a wire if you want. You can deposit checks if you want. It's not super common, but sometimes you can run into a problem funding a bank account with a check, especially a personal check, because there's rules around it. Like the bank has to make like the first $200 or something to you available immediately. But they hold on to the check to make sure everything checks out, no pun intended. And sometimes if you open a brand new account and you deposit a large check, a large personal check, they might suspect some kind of fraud, because eventually they'll have to release you the money, and then maybe the check was fake and the other bank tries to pull it back or something. So they might not let you do that. But you could potentially. I've only seen that happen like once or twice, or I've read about it, but it could potentially happen. Just in no particular order here. Another one that you might want to look out for. Again, we covered banks that charge ACH. I think at Fifth Third at one point they charged me to ACH out. So again, that's why I always just start pulling money out. Neo banks, fintech banks, like for some reason, Go-To Bank was one where like they just simply don't give you the user interface to move money out of the account, which is mighty silly of them to do. But again, as long as there's account number and routing number, you can still pull the money out from Ally, so just be wary of that as well. But overall, I think the easiest way to do it is through ACH. It exists for a reason. It's free. It only takes 2 to 3 days. Of course, they don't process on the weekend, which is kind of annoying. But that's what I do. That's how I move the money around. It's the easiest way to do it. So that is what I recommend. But again, sometimes you do have to adjust a strategy depending on your time constraints. And, if you mess up, you're trying to get your balance up really quickly, then you do have other options here as well. And again, depending on what you're trying to do, the terms and conditions usually do specify what counts, what they're counting for as a deposit. Is it just a deposit or is it a direct deposit? What have you. So definitely read those as well. But anyways, guys, that's probably everything you need to know about moving money from bank to bank. So, of course, if you like this one, drop me a thumbs up down below. If you found it particularly interesting, of course, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, posting content just like this every single week on how to make the bank's money become your money. Again, question for you, let me know your strategies down below and how you do it. And, of course, if you need to get started, check out profitable.content.com for all the latest news stories, credit card offers, and bank bonuses. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you very soon in the next one.